Okay, forklift driver is nice enough and he's grabbing the CB9, put it on the ground for me. Very courteous of him to do that. Man, a little rough here.
What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now I'm here at the salvage yard that's a little further south. This is my favorite yard because they put all the cars up on stands. Workers are very courteous and the prices are on point. So we got the CB9 wagon right behind us. It's a 5-speed, so I need to get the half shaft and the driver's side axle. And my friend Justin over in Alabama needs some trunk pieces. So let's go ahead and get some 5-speed and trunk parts from the CB9 wagon. Next weekend here at the salvage yard down south, came back to this 92 blue CB9 wagon. And this is a 5-speed, so we're gonna grab some 5-speed parts for an individual up in New York State that's looking to convert his CB7. So let me show you what we're gonna grab. So we're gonna grab the driver's side axle and the half shaft. So I gotta go underneath the car and undo, I think it's 3 12mm bolts. So once I undo that, that'll free it from the back of the engine. And then I go to the front right here and go ahead and undo this axle bolt with my impact and then break apart the spindle assembly. And basically the half shaft and axle will pull straight backwards. And the next thing I need to grab is right down there on the back side of the engine. It's hard to see because it's a little dark down here, but basically that's the rear T-bracket. So that's from a DX or LX. You don't want to use an EX T-bracket when you're doing a 5-speed transmission. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that rear T-bracket as well. And moving on to the inside, it looks like someone has already torn up the instrument cluster. This instrument cluster says 165 on it. However, this is an automatic version. I need a manual version. So this is a 5-speed transmission. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab all the hardware from the shifter. I'm going to put that in a Ziploc bag just so the guy up in New York will have all the hardware because I've already got a shifter at the house. And I'm going to sell them. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all the center console and get all the hardware for the shifter assembly that attaches the cables and the shifter assembly to the chassis of the car. And then moving on to the back trunk area, Justin in Alabama has a sweet red CB9 sitting on some 18s. Just put some sweet RL calipers on his car. So he needs some trunk pieces. So basically he needs this fender trim right here. He needs this fender trim right there. And this top plastic trim he was looking for, but this is broken, so sorry about that, Justin. And he needs this door right here that actually goes in this position. So I'll go ahead, carefully move the fender cover on the passenger side and the driver's side. And then we've got the access door right there already accessible. But let's go ahead and do the 5-speed manual transmission parts first before this temperature heats up. Because this is the midst of summer right here, mid-July. And I think it's supposed to get around like 95 degrees today. So first thing in the morning, hopefully these clouds stay here. So this is a blessing so far. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so an hour and a half later, I got the T-bracket loose from the underside of the car. And then I had to actually loosen the motor mount itself. So it's 3 14mm bolts holding it in place. And then I had to go ahead and undo the shifter cables right here. Because the shifter cables are right on top of that T-bracket, causing very little working room. So once I loosen that thing up, I got a lot more play with this T-bracket. So I think it's pretty loose. So let me go ahead and check that motor mount. All right, so I'm able to move that motor mount right there out of the way. And now hopefully I can drop that T-bracket from the underside of the car because this thing just fits in like a tight puzzle piece. Gotta love Hondas. They got great engineering, but work on these things can be a pain in the butt. So let's go on the other side of the car and grab the T-bracket. Okay, so while I'm on the other side of the car, I went ahead and got the half shaft, and there's 3 14mm bolts holding it in place. And then here's the T-bracket over here. So I actually had to remove the oil filter myself in order to get my ratchet over on those bolts that are 17mm on the T-bracket. So the T-bracket is pretty loose right here. So I'm gonna see if I can lift this thing out and get it out, but I mean, it's tough. This thing is in here pretty tight. I mean, there's wire loom on top of there. There's shifter cables. So I'm just going to have to put the phone down in order for me to get this thing out. Okay, went ahead and removed the center console of the CB9 wagon. I need to get access to all hardware on the shifter assembly. Now, I've already got a shifter assembly, but basically I need to get those 4 12mm bolts right there. And also there's an 8mm bolt on the main shaft right there. Got that off with a washer. And there's a cotter pin with a specific washer and a plastic spacer on this one. So I was able to get all the hardware for the gentleman in New York. So I believe we're squared away on all the hardware. And also there's 2 metal clips right here holding the shifter cables in position on the shifter itself. So I believe we've captured all the hardware on the shifter assembly itself. And I put everything in a Ziploc bag, so we'll keep everything organized. Okay, about an hour later, got both left and right side fender covers for the CB9. Let me show you how to remove these things. So first things first, there's plastic pieces right here on the very top. Go ahead and take the bottom piece, carefully pry that out, and then it'll expose 10mm bolts. Remove those about 4 10mm bolts. And then what you want to do is you want to take your pry tool and you want to go between the panel and the metal body, and you want to carefully pry. So I don't know if you can see some of these clips right here. This one got stuck in here, but that one stayed in place, that one stayed in place. So just take your pry tool and carefully pry this thing. And then there's 2 clips on the very bottom. So take your pry tool, pop those 2 plastic tabs out, and then let me show you guys what's going on with the plastic seatbelt trim. So here's the plastic seatbelt trim. Basically carefully pry this thing out. So once you pull this plastic trim back, you're going to see some Phillips head screws that hold the fender covers onto this plastic piece right here. So there's one down there, and I don't know if you can see it. Now once you remove those Phillips head screws, the fender panel will actually pry away from this plastic panel right here, and then you can remove it safely. So I think the passenger side was a lot easier to remove. However, on the driver's side, you got the 6x9 cutout right here, and I think there's like a Phillips head screw. Go ahead and remove that. And there's some panel clips on the very back side, especially up here. So you need to be very careful removing this thing because it's not reinforced very well. So I was able to get this thing in one piece. So Justin, I hope you like these fender covers to replace the worn out ones you got. And I also got the matching access door on the passenger side as well that was requested. Okay, got the manual transmission, driver's side axle and half shaft, and also got the manual transmission rear T-bracket, and that thing was fighting me right there. Let me tell you, not fun removing the rear T-bracket. So basically I had to remove the shifter cables up top and then take off the actual rear motor mount, which are held in place with 3 14mm bolts. So once those items were removed, I was able to go on the underside, remove the 17mm bolts, and this thing basically shook free. And let me show you one thing on that rear T-bracket. So right here's a little clip, and this basically holds a wiring harness. So you need to reach up into the engine, unhook that wiring harness, then you can wiggle this thing free. This thing is just not fun to remove, let me tell you. Okay, I believe we got all the parts we need from this dark blue CB9. We got the rear trunk panels for the fenders, we got seat plastic covers, and we got the driver's side axle, half shaft, and also the rear T-bracket. And we also got the hardware for the shifter assembly itself. So rest in peace, blue CB9. Hope you can keep other ones on the road. All right, coming across this car in the yard, definitely had to get coverage. Why are we looking at a 1995 Toyota Tercel Coupe in green? Because my brother had the exact same car growing up. Exact black bumpers, because I remember it wasn't painted to the body, but his was an automatic. Let's see if this is a manual. And sadly, it is an automatic. So basically it's an identical model what my brother had. Of course, my brother had a nice stereo in there. I think the vinyl seats, I believe that's what he had as well. This is just a very simple car, yet reliable. Let's go ahead and check the miles on the other side. And the front end does have a little collision damage right there on the fender. So it looks like this car did some sideswipe action. Oh, we also got some quarter panel damage as well. So this car has 179,000 miles. So there you have it, a 1995 Toyota Tercel Coupe in green. Okay, now beyond this chain link fence is rows 900 plus, and this is off limits to the pick and pullers. Only employees can go back here and pull parts. But they're really clean house. I mean, see how almost this thing is empty? I don't know, about maybe 1/3 has been cleared out, maybe a half. But the other day, this thing was just jam-packed with rows. So I guess they deemed that the cars are no longer valuable. They've pulled the motors and transmissions or whatever it may be, and they're gonna take the forklift and put it back in the regular pick and pull yard. So they're getting ready for some new, fresh, expensive inventory, I guess. 2013 silver Hyundai Genesis Coupe. Now, why are we looking at this car? Because my good friend Princey in Texas has one, and he's got an issue with his battery tie down. Let me show you what's going on. Okay, burnt engine bay. Never mind, can't get any parts here. So right back there, behind the strut tower, that's your battery tray. So he's got a strip bolt on the bottom of the battery tray, so this thing is broken and melted. So this battery tray is essentially no good, along with most parts of the engine bay, due to the fire. So we're gonna go ahead and keep on looking for Hyundai Genesis coupes. Okay, I came back to this yard a few days later. This gray Honda Accord is actually on the inventory list, is in processing, but it looks like it's on the stack of cars here, and I don't know if they're gonna put this thing in the yard. This seems to be the crush pile, sadly. And I do need some parts on the inside trunk area for my friend in Alabama, but I don't know if the forklift driver is gonna be nice enough to put this thing on the ground so I can get some parts real quick, because that's really a shame that this thing's gonna be crushed and nobody's gonna have access to this thing. But looks like it's in pretty good condition for the most part. But like I said, it's on this pile of cars here, ready to be crushed. And I don't know if this forklift driver is gonna allow me to, pull some parts before it goes to crush pile.
Okay, forklift driver is nice enough and he's grabbing the CB9, put it on the ground for me. Very courteous of him to do that. Man, a little rough here. Yep, just going on the ground. Poor car. I need some parts from that back trunk area before it goes to crusher. I think that's where it's headed with the XC on the back. Very nice guy. Give him a big thank you when he's done here. There she goes. Back on the ground so I can grab some parts. All right, let's get to work. 1992 Honda Accord CB9 in gray color. Obviously got some damage from the forklift grabbing off the pile, but basically I need some trunk parts right there, so hopefully that was not damaged. Got some tin windows. Obviously that roof is pulled up. A lot of glass, just gotta be careful. Let's take a look inside. Automatic, sadly. Got an aftermarket radio still there. Let's go ahead and check the miles on this thing. And of course, shattered front windshield from the forklift force pulling up on the roof. So I'm not gonna go in the front area of the car. Yeah, take a look at this core support right here. Looks like this thing was in a front-end collision. And see how the radiator right there is damaged? Yeah, this car was in a wreck, sadly. Okay, we got some shower window here, the window tint. I'm gonna be very careful not to even touch this thing here. Now, I'm trying to zoom in on best here. This is 246,000 miles, it looks like. This is gray interior, which is what I'm looking for. I mean, just look at the damage this thing sustains when cars are stacked on top of this thing. And obviously the rear window's been shattered out. Unfortunately, the rear hatch is still in place. Got a little glass right there, so gotta be extra cautious. Let me just actually pull this windshield wiper here. Let that thing release. All right, hopefully the rear hatch opens up so I can get some interior panel parts for Justin down in Alabama. All right, able to get the rear hatch open on the CB9. As you can see, here's all the car parts from the front end collision. You got the fender, bumper support, crumpled up hood. Looks like another radiator right there. And there's that styrofoam for the bumper support. And this is the plastic piece I'm looking for. So I gotta be real careful because there's a little bit of glass on there. So I'm gonna go find like a t-shirt there from one of the cars and just wipe this thing clean. And then I'll be able to get this piece right here because these things are hard to find. All right, let's go ahead and clean this thing off and pull this part. Okay, went ahead and pulled out all the wrecked parts, including this hood. And got the carpet as well. So the carpet's out of this car. And this right here is the plastic piece I was after. It was a little tough because there's some damage right here in the quarter window that was pinching this thing. But it's out of the car, safe and sound. And I got Justin an extra piece of carpet so he can decide which gray one works best for him. So I'm gonna go ahead and load this hood back in the trunk of this car just so I can save the yard workers some time since they were nice enough to pull this car off the crush pile. Now it's really sad that this car was on the crush pile and it hasn't even seen the yard, but the worker was very cool on loading this thing from the pile and let me pull some parts. Okay, let me put this hood in there and then we'll shut the trunk and say our goodbyes. Rest in peace, gray CB9. It's really a shame you're getting crushed, but I'm glad the yard worker was able to pull this thing off the pile so I can grab some last minute parts. I guess that they deemed that they either had too many CB7s in the yard or your parts weren't as valuable since you had some front end collision, but whatever the case, you helped me out a bunch. And I'm sure Justin in Alabama will. Rest in peace, CB9. You'll be soon seeing the car gods. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and roll up this carpet, grab the plastic trim pieces in my tool bag. We're gonna go ahead, head to the cashier and check out. Alrighty guys, I'd say it was a very successful haul today with the 2 junkyard visits. Now the first junkyard had the dark blue CB9 wagon. We were able to get some trunk pieces for Justin over in Alabama. On top of that, some manual transmission parts for an individual up in New York State looking to do a 5-speed conversion. Now the second yard had the gray CB9 wagon, and that thing was already on the crush pile. Ironically, it never made it out to the yard for the picking part, but I was able to talk to the forklift driver, and it was very nice. Get that thing off the pile so I can get some parts. So I got a trunk mat and some plastic pieces from the trunk, so Justin from Alabama can have his trunk completed as well. Now keep in mind, coming across 2 CB9 wagons in one weekend is very rare. Now with my 2+ years of junkyard searching, I've come across more sedans. Coupes are rare, but the wagons are even worse. So it's pretty crazy to find 2 in one weekend, but we were pretty successful on the parts we're looking for. Now guys, if you want to see any specific cars on these junkyards when I go on these tours, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll do my best I can to give some coverage of those vehicles. And if you found this video helpful or entertaining, please give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and have a fantastic day.